Okay, welcome into the Milwaukee Bucks on Tap podcast, episode 9. Corey Moen, Evan Byrne. We hope everyone had an amazing Thanksgiving. Evan, what'd you do for Thanksgiving?
Well, since I got the flu and was out sick, I was at home playing some video games. My family went out to my grandparents' house. They brought me home some leftovers, but it was just kind of nice to be at home for a little bit, though.
Yeah, but on Thanksgiving, though.
It was
Yeah,
bad timing, but a lot of kids in my school were sick, so I got it.
that's tough. Um, for me, what I did was normally we have a semi big gathering at my aunt's house. She couldn't host this year because she got sick. And then she has a lot of grandkids who normally come over. That didn't happen this year. So instead, we just went to my parents' house and we just celebrated with uh, my grandparents and my aunt. So it was really nice to get away.
hmm
It was nice to be back at home, despite the fact I only live 15 minutes from my house. So, um, so that aspect of it was fun. Again, hope everyone had a good Thanksgiving. So we'll just get right into the games. Milwaukee had 3 games this week: Portland, Chicago, and Cleveland. So we'll get into those now. They went 2-1, and we'll just get right into the first game. Uh, Evan, the first game was against the Portland Trail Blazers.
hmm
Milwaukee won 119 to 111. Damian Lillard was not available
Yep.
for the Trailblazers as he's been dealing with the calf strain. So, but Giannis had a great MVP like performance in that game. 37 points, 16 to 24 shooting. What do you make of the Bucks' performance against the Blazers?
I say it was pretty. I know the score was they only won by 8, but I know near the end they played a lot of their backups, so they kind of like let them catch up, which happens a lot when those kinds of games happen. But overall, I think it was pretty solid from Giannis. Obviously, dropping 37, kind of flirted with the triple double, but not as close as some other ones. Um, he seemed to be making his shots a lot more. Again, only missing 8 of the 24. Big thing though is his free throws again, which has been going on throughout the past few games. Same with a couple others, like Drew 1 for 6. But overall, they seemed pretty confident with each other. They worked really well with each other. Pat came back, so he played exactly how I expected him to play. Not a lot of minutes, but still kind of scored when he had the chance. So he looked, excuse me, he looked a little comfortable getting right back out there after missing the first like 2 months of basketball. So I was excited to see him back.
Yeah, and that was huge for Milwaukee to get Pat Connaughton back in his first game. 7 points, 2 out of 5 shooting. Hit his first three of the season on a dribble handoff from Giannis. So
hmm
good for Pat Connaughton to get back in the swing of things. There really wasn't too many things that really stuck out to me. It was just a good quality win
hmm
against the dameless Portland Trailblazers. Obviously, outside of Damian Lillard, there's and I guess Anthony Simons is not a whole lot of talent on that roster. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess they have Yusuf Nurkic, but they're in the stages of a mini rebuild.
hmm
I think. When you trade away Dame Lillard's at backcourt mate CJ McCollum last season, that team is not going to be as competitive, which is crazy to say with a guy like Damian Lillard on the roster.
Yep.
But Portland just has one of those teams where, like, you blindfold me, and it would be hard pressed to name at least 5 players on that team.
Yeah, they have a lot of guys who have bounced around from like major teams like Josh Hart and Gary Payton II, who also didn't play, Justice Winslow. So you have a lot of those guys who are like team hopping now that they're on the Blazers, but they're playing pretty well. I like Anthony Simons. I think he's pretty underrated.
Mhm.
But yeah, having him being your lead scorer in one of these games, knowing that the Bucks have most of their core back, it was kind of a tricky game to win, but they seemed to hold it down for a while, in my opinion.
Yeah. So, but there was one play that stuck out to me, and we're going to be trying a new thing on the podcast where me and Evan are going to find a play or two that stuck out to us or was just utterly insane. So I'm going to show you guys about that right now. It was the Giannis dunking on Yusuf Nurkic. So we'll see what we got here. Let's see.
First of all, watch Giannis. Watch how he just explodes off that. Challenge made that one tough to break. Here comes Giannis picking up some speed.
It did not share. I don't think the screen shared on it. But that's all right.
Did not share?
No, I don't think so.
Ah, all right. Damn,
But it was a pretty.
It was an
pretty
insane dunk.
Giannis
Yeah.
poster.
It was a Giannis poster. Damn, I'm disappointed it didn't share. Maybe we won't be trying a new thing on the podcast because I thought it would, but it's weird. Anyways, yeah, it was an insane play. Nothing Giannis does surprises me anymore.
Which is so weird to say because of how like amazing he does, but there are some things where it's like, yep, he's doing it again. It's just like a flashback of like things that he's done in the past that I think resurface after quite a while. Because I don't know, I feel like some of the posters he used to get like isn't as much the same anymore, just because people have somewhat figured him out. But yeah, I didn't get to watch part of the game, but the Bleacher Report was Giannis posters, Nurkic.
Well, I mean, Yusuf Nurkic is basically what do they call it? He's a human springboard.
Yep.
Yeah, like LeBron dunked on him, Giannis dunked on him. He's basically like this generation Sean Bradley.
Yep.
Like everyone uses Yusuf Nurkic, which sucks to say because he's not a bad player. But
yeah, same with Aaron Baines when Giannis used to dunk all over him.
Good lord. Yeah, you gotta have one of those guys in the league.
You have the guy, and props for him for going up.
Props to
It just didn't end well,
it did not. Oh Lord, no. And then here's the other moment that I think we should talk about. Those Blazers players should be arrested for the way they fouled Giannis the other night.
Yeah, he was getting hacked. And a lot of them weren't even called, I think.
Particular.
Yeah. You go, sorry.
Yeah, no, I was talking about that one play in particular when he got I think Justice Winslow
chokehold in him.
Yeah. Come on.
That freeze frame photo is hilarious and deserves to be in all museums. It's like when people just zoomed in. If you haven't seen it, I would look it up, but just the face of Giannis, it looks horrific, and then you got the guy's hands around his neck. It's hilarious. Obviously it's not funny, but it's funny,
No, it's not funny, but it's just the fact that if it were any other guy, I think that would be a flagrant 2 and an ejection.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that Giannis, he's basically like Shaq at this point, where they don't know how to referee for him, so they're just 2 hands. I mean, nothing happened to him. So I mean, that's flagrant 1.
I always think of it as what would have happened had Grayson Allen done this. That's how I like to put it into perspective, because people would have had him arrested. I feel like there's so many things where it's always now if Grayson Allen would have done this, and it's one of those things where with the ladder situation, whoa, what would have Grayson Allen would have gotten? It's there's so many things where it's what would have been the difference had it not been Giannis or had it been someone else who followed him? And it's one of those sad but true moments.
I don't think Grayson Allen would be strong enough to throw the ladder like that.
That's true.
Giannis tossed that thing.
Maybe a little ladder. A normal ladder.
Yes, Giannis took that ladder and just tossed it. Yeah, you're right. I think everything gets exacerbated now because of what Grayson Allen did to Alex Caruso,
Mm.
which Bulls fans are still not over. I
Uh-huh.
understand the guy broke his wrist, but he's acting like he committed like murder on Alex Caruso. I'm like, guy just broke his wrist. Now, I understand it's a
Uh-huh.
dangerous fall to take a guy out of midair, but at the same time, it happens. It's
It is what
basketball.
it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. Oh, good lord. All right,
Yeah.
we'll move on to the next game. I didn't. This
No,
game wasn't good.
this was a stupid game, and I
I
hated every
hated it.
second of it. What bugged me the most, and especially like the difference when we get into the Cavs game, I'll kind of go into more of it.
Yeah.
But I hate when the Bucks get early leads because they went up 12 points, and 2 minutes later it was gone. Like it
Mhm.
wasn't like staggered through a quarter. It legitimately was like 2 to 3 minutes. It was gone, and they were losing.
It's just
And what bugs me the most is that I'm not saying the Bulls, they're 10-8 or 10-18, 8-10.
mhm.
And so obviously they have a worse record than the Bucks and a
Yep.
worse record than most people or most teams in the Eastern Conference. But like they're not a bad team, which bugs me. It's just their lack of consistency, I think, with shooting wise, some games where it's either everyone is on or no one has ever shot a basketball in their life. And tonight or that night was it seemed like no one had shot a basketball for some of them. Giannis scored 36 and
Mhm.
Brooks scored 20. Drew had 14. Their starters did well besides Javon. But it was like just so inconsistent shooting in
Yep.
the second and third quarter, especially the third quarter, because
Yep.
when aren't they bad in the third quarter?
Yep.
Oh, until yesterday. But it's like so sloppy and like lack of defense too, where it's like they let them shoot so many wide open shots with like not even a contest. If you contest it and they make it, that's fine. But there's just so many plays where they just watch them get the rebound, dribble to the corner, and shoot the ball, where it's like there's not even like an effort put into it,
Mhm.
which I think irritates me the most because I would rather lose 118 to 113 with a couple contested threes that they made
Yep.
compared to 3 offensive rebounds and then they just let him pass it all around and then they just do like the that's fine, shoot it, and then they drain it.
Mm.
Like with Vucevic near the end of the game, that's like what I remember the most is how wide open they let him shoot 2 times from each corner. And it was like, well, now you kind of deserve to lose because you're just letting them shoot now. So I think that bugged me the most, besides DeMar DeRozan continuing to dominate the Bucks even on a new team. Because that's
Uh,
all he did when he was on the Raptors.
it's not even just DeMar DeRozan. It's Vucevic too. Ever
Yes,
since
and he finally came out.
Vucevic, ever since he's been on the Magic, has always done really well against the Bucks. I
So
don't
now
know
they're
what it
just
is.
adding all those guys up on one team.
Well, because and look, I like Brook Lopez. It's just with some of those guys who can step out and shoot, he
Yeah,
does struggle sometimes defending the three. And
and he
Vucevic
has
and Vucevic is one of those guys that can like stretch the floor for Chicago.
has a little handles to him, so it's a lot of those guys who are pairing him up to Brook. You have the size on Brook, but he's not as fast as Vucevic or
Mhm.
some of those other like quicker centers. I don't know how old Vucevic is, but
Mm.
he's got the speed to him that Brook is lacking, which sucks.
Yeah. No, and add some numbers in here. DeMar DeRozan had 36 points, 14 to 24 shooting, and
Yep.
Vucevic had 18 points, 7 to 14 shooting. As you just mentioned, near the end of the game, uh, but Chicago was up 112 to 109, and Vucevic
Hmm.
hit a crucial three to seal the game.
Yep.
Um, watching that play, wide open, and that ball just
Yep.
that was an ultimate swish right there. Like
Uh-huh. It
there's a swish,
touched.
and then there's like an ultimate swish where it didn't, where you just could hear it and just be like, oh,
Oh, well, there goes that.
that killed me. That killed me on the inside when I heard that because I was like, oh, game's over.
Yeah, that's like when Curry hits that three and you hear bang. against your favorite team. It's like one of those situations where like,
That
oh,
was
it's
So
over.
that was
It
tough.
was it was a frustrating win or a frustrating loss.
Yeah.
It was essentially their third quarter. They only scored 20. They held them to 29, which doesn't seem like a lot,
Mm-hmm.
but only scoring 21 in the third, I think, was one of their biggest downfalls. And just a lot of turnovers that were like kind of costly. Giannis had 8 turnovers and Drew had 7 turnovers.
Yeah.
So combined, they had 15 of their
Yeah.
19 turnovers. So I don't know. It was kind of sloppy at points.
And I'll add in one more thing about the Bulls. I think a guy who should be brought up is Kobe White,
Yes.
a much criticized player for Chicago.
Who is
He dropped in 14 points, 5 of 10 shooting, and he did hit 2 crucial threes.
Yep, near the end.
Near the end to keep Chicago in the game, which obviously they ended up winning.
Yep.
And looking at those plays from Kobe White, like they basically were like, Kobe White can't shoot. Like
Once he got the haircut,
they gave him 2 wide open threes.
Yeah. You're gonna hit that no matter what NBA player you are. Like if you're that wide open, you have a very high chance of making it, especially being a shooter like him. He was super underrated, then was kind of overrated, but now he's back to underrated just because of like the hate that he got. But I don't hate Kobe White. It's just annoying that like they're letting some of these like shooters just shoot, with no contests. Like letting Vucevic shoot 10 3-pointers. Now he only made 4 of them, but 2 of them won the game. So, but still allowing 10 of their possessions to be a 3-point shot from their center is not the best situation. Just shows kind of like the lack of defense, especially that wing to corner defense on some of those shots.
Yeah,
which has always happened throughout the past Budenholzer era. So it's nothing new. It's just annoying.
Yeah, and it's super frustrating because the point of emphasis for Milwaukee this year was we're going to defend the 3-point line better. And Chicago shot 18 of 42 from 3.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't do a good job of defending the 3-point line on Wednesday night. And ultimately cost them the game. Now, like DeMar DeRozan, whatever. He's one of those players that is going to get his buckets. He won't always have the greatest shooting performances, but he is going to find any way to score.
Yep.
It's just frustrating that it always happens against Milwaukee, where no matter who Milwaukee has on their team, has never figured out a good, concise way to stop DeMar DeRozan.
Yep. It'll happen here or there, being able to stop him, like in the playoffs last year, where they held him to some games where he still scored 25, but shot like 30 shots where he's like 9 for 27. But it's still like, no matter how they try to guard him, he'll either hit him right over you or you'll foul him almost every time. And today was one of those, or the other day was one of those days where he just seemed to make a lot of them. And it is what it is. That was a crappy loss, but they were able to bounce back then on Friday, which kind of bugged me. I was hoping that the 2-1 this week was going to be a win against the Bulls or hope a 3-0, but we'll take yesterday's win over anything.
Yeah, but
I was having some hate yesterday once that game started against the Cavs, so I had to catch myself really quick.
Do you think that will be a theme for Milwaukee this year, where if their scoring isn't balanced, they won't win? Because I've noticed that where Giannis and Drew and Brooke had solid games. I mean, obviously Giannis had the 8 turnovers, but he still dropped in
36.
a 36. Yeah, still dropped in 36. Do you think that's going to be a theme for Milwaukee this year, where if it's not balanced, the team won't win?
I would say yes, more than like any others. I would say maybe like a couple games where they could push a win out, but I would say the majority of the time it'll be that. And I always just kind of look at it I'm always like, when they lose by like a couple baskets, I always put back of like, what were those like easy shots that they missed or those free throws that they missed that could have like pushed them over. Because when you lose by 5 points, that's a 2-possession game. and it's always like had Bobby not missed 4 3-pointers and made one more, or Giannis made a couple more free throws, and I always kind of put it that way. But I feel like if only 2 or 3 guys are scoring, or sometimes even just 2, then no one else is going to, because once Giannis has 30 and up, I feel like no one else has been scoring that whole game, and that's when he needs to take over, because there are some other games where he has like 20 to 25 and other guys are scoring just as much too. So I feel like that's a good take on how the majority of their games are going to look this year, scoring wise and winning wise.
Yeah, because I think in the Bulls game, Grayson Allen dropped 13,
Mm-hmm.
but the bench didn't do anything, and
Nope.
Rod Carter didn't do anything. So I think against the Bulls, it was one of those circumstances where they just allowed too many threes, turned the ball over too much, and and I guess Chicago got contributions from guys other than DeRozan
Yep.
and Vucevic, like Kobe White, because we didn't mention Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine
He
shot, I
kind of
believe,
was a little off. He
yeah.
had 18, which is still a decent game.
Mhm.
But for Zach LaVine, I think he's like a 20. He's averaging, I think, around 20 this year. But there are still some games where he is more than capable of also scoring 36. But yeah, holding him 3 for 11 on 3-pointers, I thought was like their hope of, okay, they can slow down Zach LaVine. Let's just try to slow down DeMar DeRozan. And then boom, boom, boom. And DeMar DeRozan hit 2 threes. Usually he's not a 3-point shooter. That's kind of like with Jimmy Butler too, when they play him, try to hold him to like shoot threes. But yeah, of course he made 2 of his 3 threes. But that was a crappy loss, especially with Dragic out, and for them, because Dragic usually always owns the Bucks no matter who he's playing for. And then obviously they didn't have Serge for extra help too. But oh well. Hopefully they got one of those couple losses out of the way for the year.
Agreed.
But yeah, it's one of those games where it sucks. I feel like I'll get into that with the Cavs game. We'll hold that thought.
Well, and good segue, because we are moving right into the Cavs game. Milwaukee won Friday's game. Yeah, Friday, 117 to 102. Really, if I had to describe how this game went, it was Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland did well for the Cavs. Nobody else did well. And Giannis put on an MVP-like performance for the age of 38 points, 13 to 20 shooting. Just looking overall dominance against Cleveland, who lost Jared Allen earlier in the game with the right hip injury. What do you make of Giannis's performance?
I think he started off really well, and he was kind of feeling himself, hit the pull up 3. He kind of shot. I was like, okay, like it was in like the heat of like their run. But I think he looked better shooting than he has since the 9-0 streak, or even I would say like more of his end of like his 30 plus games. I know he went like 5 games in a row scoring at least 30, but he felt like he was back to like his scoring ways, especially on the free throw end. He went 10 of 14, which to me is like a solid stat line. I think if you can only miss less than 5 free throws and when you're shooting more than 10, I feel like that's pretty solid. But 38 points in 30 minutes is absolutely insane. That was like his 40 game in 28 minutes, where when you're scoring more points than minutes playing, I think that's an incredible like performance wise. And he got a lot of his teammates involved. He had the 6 assists. He had some playmaking plays as well, 2 blocks. So he looked excited. He looked like he was ready to like come back and score like 100 points. Like how early he started, and the mean mug, the facial expressions where it's like, oh well, the Cavs are done for. As soon as he hits one of those plays where it's like, well, that's a wrap. And I was excited. I was mad I couldn't go to the game, but it was, I would have went, none of this would have happened. That's always my thought of what would have actually happened, but I really liked the game. I enjoyed every second of the second half, I should say, of this game, not the first half.
Poor Dean Wade. Yeah.
I know. I forgot about that guy. As soon as I saw him, I'm like, oh yeah, he's a person. That's the new D Wade.
Giannis posterized him with the drew threw an end to the half court, and poor Dean Wade just
Yep.
late defensive Giannis just posterized him.
Yeah, that would have been my highlight of the week, was that play. Or I should just say all of Giannis's 9 dunks he had in the Cavs game were all capable of being a highlight of the week. You could make a segment on just his dunks, but he was dunking all over the Cavs, and it felt like every other possession he was dunking it. Now, what bugs me the most about the Bucks, and it's always been like this, especially in recent years, is why they're capable of beating the Cavs, who are 12, and they would have been 12-6 going into the game.
Yeah.
They're capable of beating them after going down 16 and then going up 22, but they can't beat the Bulls after having a 12-plus lead and then just losing it. And it always bugs me of how are they capable to just turn around a game like that, but they can't hold some of these like leads early. Obviously, you can't hold a 12-point lead early as much in the NBA much anymore, but it just ended so quickly where it felt like they never even were up. But it always bugs me as why can they always play so well against some of these like top teams, but not as much against some of the lower end teams, which kind of annoys me, but it helps for like later on if they both make a playoff push where they're capable of doing it. But I feel like the Bucks should always go down 15 plus every game because it seems like they're more than capable of like coming back than they are of holding a lead, which is kind of weird to say, but it's happened so many times where they're better when they're down than they are up.
I think I can answer that. I think it probably stems from the fact that Chicago they have a lot of long players to kind of bother Giannis's shot. They have Patrick Williams, and now they added in Andre Drummond.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think the role players from Chicago are better than the ones in Cleveland, because I've said this about Cleveland: they're top heavy.
Yes, they are. Yep, I remember you saying that the last time they played them.
They gave up all those assets just to get Donovan Mitchell, and now they just have to fill in the bench. And Kevin Love just went out with a hairline fracture in his finger. So, like, who else does Cleveland have coming off the bench? They had Isaac Okoro, who chipped in 13, and they have
Chetty Osman and Robin Lopez.
Chetty Osman, Robin Lopez. I mean, really, that's their bench?
Uh-huh.
Like, that can't be your bench. No disrespect to Robin Lopez.
Yeah, we love the Lopez brothers, but it's not going to win you the championship.
And again, no disrespect to this Bucks selection, but when Mamde Diakite is part of your rotation, like, come on. Yeah. Like, really, that can't be like that on most NBA teams. Diakite would be the 12th or 13th guy.
Yep.
He's the guy coming off the bench. Like, he's one of the main guys coming off the bench. So Cleveland doesn't have a good team. And look, they just went to the play-in round. They weren't like, oh my God, this team is ascending. They could really go far in the playoffs if they just get Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell's a great player. Don't get me wrong. But as I look at the rest of your team, when you have like Dean Wade or Lamar Stevens starting, like, come on. That's not a good team. Chicago has a better team than Cleveland does. Like, I think that's why, because there's certain matchup challenges I think Chicago can bother the Bucks with that I can't say the same about Cleveland. And them losing Jarrett Allen, that's their longest guy on the roster.
Yeah, that was a big hitter for them because he only played how many minutes are we?
13 minutes, I think.
13 minutes, yeah, 12, 13 minutes.
Yeah.
So roughly a quarter's worth of play. But yeah, that seeing him go and the play in which he like hurt himself on is one of those where it's not like typically you're not back the next game, because that's like where you hit right on the tailbone. So hopefully I hate injuries, so hopefully he gets back, but losing your primary center, I should say, like Evan Mobley has, I feel like the last time they even played him, he could not shoot as well. He only shot 2 for 12, and 4 of his points were free throws. So if you can hold him and just let it be Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell scoring, cool. I feel like that is very capable of a win for the majority of the league. And controversial take alert. I feel like at this point, I'm going to say it, the Jazz won the Donovan Mitchell trade. I feel like that is a extreme hot take. And the Cavs, they don't have a bad record, but I feel like in the long run, down the road, like outside of like the playoffs in this season, I feel like the Jazz are going to benefit more on the trade than the Cavs will be with getting Donovan Mitchell. Because like they only got Donovan Mitchell. They gave up Colin Sexton, who's a great player. Lauri Markkanen's been balling out in Utah right now. He's career high over there, like 38 the other day. So I don't know. It could be people could hate on it, but I think the Jazz are slowly starting to win the trade. It used to be pretty even, but now I'm kind of leaning like 60-40 the Jazz on the trade. But I agree with you. They're very top heavy, and I don't know. It'll be interesting once we get to like post All-Star break, kind of pushing playoffs where they're going to be at. But overall, dominant game by Giannis. I think he had 111 points this week.
And as you mentioned, a season high 9 dunks, which it's insane someone kept that stat.
Yeah, it's 18 points right there just off of dunks.
You know, great game against Cleveland. And again, and I mentioned this before. You know how I mentioned about the fact that, you know, if Brooke, Drew Holiday, and Giannis, if all three of them just have good games, the Bucks don't necessarily win. Well, that wasn't really the case against Cleveland because it was really all Giannis and Javon Carter because I believe Drew Holiday and Brooke Lopez finished in single digits.
Yep. Javon and Giannis were the only double-digit scoring starters, and the only other double-digit one was Bobby. Otherwise, everyone else had like 9, 8, 7, 5. So like very stagnant, but like not like 2 for a lot of people and like more heavy on some. So it was a little more spread out, but yeah, there are only 3 double scoring digits. Same for the Cavs too.
No, and as wrote down in my notes here, they held Cleveland in check. They're only 39% shooting.
Yeah, I don't know. It's so odd because the Cavs started out so hot, and I was like actually kind of nervous because usually the Bucks have just been dominating our. Obviously, you don't really like talk about like their division much anymore with everyone like who's gonna win the division for each like NBA conference, but I was like kind of nervous, but I don't know. I'm not really nervous about the Cavs anymore. If they don't make any trades throughout the year, I'm not nervous about them at all. They're already 2-0 on them. I think both games were home. I feel like now they have 2 away. But I don't know. It seems to be like I have to watch more Cavs games, but it seems like Donovan Mitchell starts off really hot and gets them this big lead, and then he cools off and the entire team does, and then the Bucks just walk right over them and take a lead. And I feel like that's the exact same thing that happened the last game. They got like a 13, 14 point lead on the Bucks, and then you blink and it's gone, and now the Bucks are up 10 plus. So and they held them to less than 100, and they almost did that too tonight or last night. So I don't know. It'll be interesting, but I feel like if they don't make any moves, then they're not gonna make a run that everyone expected them to with Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah, and for Donovan Mitchell, I mean, you know, that was most of his Jazz playoff tenure is that they would get big leads.
Yep.
He would cool off, and then that would just vanish. Like that's why they ended up playoff success in Utah because they could just never close the deal.
Yeah, they choke it through and lead in 2020, and a lot of it he just carries the team on his back, and then no one else can help him. So it's kind of looking like Jazz 2.0 there in Cleveland.
Okay.
But I like him as a player. No disrespect to Donovan
Yeah.
Mitchell at all. Great player. Should have won Rookie of the Year, but he has no help at this point without, obviously, Jared Allen. Without him playing, Darius Garland and Evan Mobley and Jared Allen are really your four guys, and Donovan Mitchell. But everyone else, it's not like a scary kind of thing. So I don't know. I'm not as worried about the Cavs than I am anymore as I was when I saw they got Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah, so we'll
So
see how Cleveland finishes the rest of the season. Last topic. This podcast episode has less drama than it did last week with the old Montrezl Harrell and Giannis situation. So last topic. Chris Middleton, I believe, is close to returning. He's been practicing with the G League affiliate, Wisconsin Herd. So do you think that we'll see Chris Middleton on these upcoming games for Milwaukee?
I hope so. That's like hearing that he was practicing with the Herd is, I think, the first set of Chris Middleton news we've heard since he like got the surgery and said he would miss the first few weeks. If I'm not wrong, but I feel like that's the first time they've mentioned him not they mentioned like anything about him. We've gotten like no updates on him, so I'm hoping he can play by December 2nd when they play the Lakers. I'm hoping he's back by then. That's 3 games from now. So they play the Mavs tomorrow, Knicks Wednesday, and then Friday the 2nd. I feel like hopefully he's back, not starting playing full on, but getting that Drew Holiday and Pat Connaughton like 15, 20-ish minutes where he can just kind of like get set before starting again. I'm hoping. It made it seem like he is going to be back in the next week or two if they're sent into the Herd. Because Wesley they sent to the Herd and he was in obviously different injuries and different statuses, but hopefully that just means that Chris will be back this next week. Fingers crossed, because it seems like he is, which they need him at this point for some of their shooting consistency.
Yeah, and you brought that up. Like, whenever Chris Middleton can get back, we need him. And here's why. Because like with some of these games that Milwaukee has lost, I start to think about like would Chris Middleton have made a difference in some of these games? Now, obviously, you're going to miss games. But if we look at a few of these losses, like the Bulls, for example.
Yeah, you put Chris Middleton in there, he hits 4 shots, they win the game. Yes. Like it's one of those things where it's that game, the Sixers game. I would say if Chris would have played like after the 9-0, I feel like you could take maybe 3 of those losses away.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of look at it the same as you. It's if like what would have been the difference if he was in? Because I was looking at the schedule and I mean their record, and they're 13-5, and I kept forgetting that they were 9-0. And it like the Cavs game yesterday to me was like the only game I've like been impressed by since they went 9-0. And for a while I wasn't impressed because of how they played, but it seems like every loss they have is like worth 3 losses. And I don't know why I was like thinking that, but it was hard to go 9-0 and then to now be 13-5, and a lot of those like dumb losses that you should not have lost. Like you should not have lost to the trayless Hawks. You should not have lost to the Hawks at all, and the Bulls. So that's 3 wins right there. And the Sixers, that's 4 wins. So in a way, they should only have like 1 or 2 losses if you actually take into effect some of those games. But yeah, it's tough when you're losing games that you shouldn't be losing, but they really need Chris for just his shooting. They don't have a consistent shooter at this point, and they need one of them back.
I agree with you. And so obviously we'll see what happens with Chris Middleton and Milwaukee, see when he gets back, because Milwaukee obviously needs him at this point. Obviously a solid start, but Chris Middleton, adding him back to the lineup would be huge for Milwaukee. So Evan, you got anything else?
No, I feel like tomorrow's going to be a tough game with the Mavs with Luka. I'm hoping they can go like another 2-1 this week. Hopefully they can for sure beat the Knicks and the Lakers. The Mavs will be a little tricky just because Luka's averaging like 100 points a game. But I think it's doable. They just got to hold him to, I would say, like under 30 points to try to win that one. But hoping for a 2-1 week win again. As long as you can go above 500, I say that's a positive week for them.
Agreed. And with Pat Connaughton coming back in the fold,
Yep.
we're going to see less of Marjan Beauchamp in all
Mhm.
likelihood. He just got assigned to the Herd. Only played 5 minutes in yesterday's game against the
Yeah,
Cavs,
which was
and
just the last 5 minutes.
that did not play against the Bulls. So
Mhm.
we predicted it'd be Jordan Orr who'd be likely seeing less minutes. It is obviously going to be the younger Marjan Beauchamp, who's probably going to be
Yep.
up and down between the Herd and the Bucks.
Which is good, which is fine because he obviously knew it was expected, but he didn't disappoint when they threw him into a starting role when he's barely even played in the NBA. So good things will happen, I think, with him, especially playing down there for a little bit as well.
Yep. So this is all right. So this has been the Milwaukee Bucks on Tap podcast, episode 9. 3 upcoming games against the Mavs, Knicks, and Lakers,
Mhm.
and a nice little Saturday matinee against the
Oh,
Hornets.
yeah.
So we'll preview those games for you guys next week. We'll preview those games for you guys next week. So we'll see you then.